that priest that Hamster has decided to bring. So first matchup of the quarterfinals for the World Championship, Hamster on the Druid and Jasonzhou on the Dragon Warrior that we just mentioned.
Yeah, and Hamster is playing the token version of Druid. He's not playing the spell-heavy Malagos burst damage Druid. This deck is built more to play wide to the board, which can be pretty powerful against the Dragon Warrior because they don't have access to Brawl like Control Warrior does. It can be difficult for them to react if you're able to get a turn where you get an explosive big board.
Yeah, so the Druid had an interesting performance over the course of the group stages. Druid was one of the worst performing decks out of a lot of the decks that players brought. Of course, you know, it's exacerbated by the fact that a lot of players brought Druid, so it's going to be closer to 50-50 than normal. But it didn't perform up to a lot of players' expectations, maybe because everybody knew that everybody else would bring the deck.
Yeah, it is a deck that has pretty high variance. Games where you have your early wild growth, where you have innervate, those can be very powerful, but it can be more difficult in games where you struggle and fall behind, particularly the Malagos version of Druid, at least in the early days of opening week, struggled. We did see the token version that Hamster is playing perform much better until a little bit of stumbles in the final days.
Yeah, it does have a better matchup in the sort of Druid mirror. It preys on the other Malagos Druids because of the token nature of it. You know, they have a hard time dealing with the wide board.
And this opening turn from Hamster, he has Innervate and Coin to deploy a Violet Teacher. This gives him an ability to actually go in the board quickly. And this is one of the things that separates the token version from the Malagos version, the ability to go proactive early on. And in a matchup like this one, it could potentially end up being very strong if Jason doesn't have access to execute to remove an early minion.
Oh yeah, I mean, the one thing that Dragon Warrior struggles with is coming back onto a board that it's lost. It has a lot of tools to make its board lead even further, but it doesn't have many tools at coming back. Deathwing is one of the ways that you can do it, but it's very far away. It's turn 10.
We're a long way away from Deathwing here.
But, you know, you have to flip that switch early and start playing towards those outs earlier in this matchup if you get behind.
Yeah, and the Fiery War Axe from Jason here is going to let him potentially remove this Violet Teacher pretty easily over the course of 2 turns. Hamster, he does not find a Power of the Wild or anything to even prevent his Violet Teacher from going down to just Fire Blast from Jasonzhou. So, you know, Hamster invested a lot in that early Violet Teacher, and Jasonzhou has the tools to shut it down.
He does, yeah. Now Hamster has to really think, is it worth Living Roots? Should I play into a Ravaging Ghoul? One thing to keep in mind is Jasonzhou only has 1 copy of Ravaging Ghoul in his own deck. So this would be the best time to play into it. And to be honest, Hamster really doesn't have too many other options. Yeah, he went with the plan of applying pressure. Can he go away from it now?
Yeah, Ragnaros was not what he wanted to draw after that opening. He's already invested, you know, in Innervate, the coin. Now drawing an 8-drop as his immediate turn 2 draw is not what he's looking for. Living Roots will let him make 3 saplings, 1 from the Violet Teacher as well as the 2 other. So if Jasonzhou does not find a Ravaging Ghoul or something else to allow him to contain them, they can do a lot of damage. But Jasonzhou does have that Fire Blast. So worst case scenario, he can just use his hero power to eliminate a lot of these 1-health minions turn after turn.
And one thing that Dragon Warrior does very well is it curves out well. It's very rare that it doesn't find some plays to make throughout every stage of the game. So if Hamster misses more turns, if he doesn't draw into things that he can play early on, Jasonzhou can slowly use that Fire Blast to chip away at the board and try and gain back the board control.
Yeah, and Jason here using his Alexstrasz as champion so he can remove 2 minions pretty easily and have the minion left on the board. This helps play around Power of the Wild if Hamster were to be able to buff his team with that. The Raven Idol for Hamster finds some reasonable options, but he's still very, very light on mana. He didn't have the acceleration from Wild Growth, so it's going to be difficult for him to take advantage of Nourish. He could potentially take the Nourish. He can't even cast it next turn, though. It's only turn 3, and he's already forced in a situation where he's reacting to Jasonzhou. It's not what he wants to be.
If he knew that he would draw into a turn 4 play, then he would probably opt for the Nourish, just because his hand right now needs a lot more gas as far as like the next few turns go. He can't play the Ragnaros until turn 8. He's already used an Innervate, but he picks the Swipe to sort of fill out his curve a little bit better. He's still gonna need something for turn 5 though.
Yeah, and this Hamster recognizing, okay, now my early Violet Teacher was dealt with. I'm on defense now. He takes the Swipe. He's gonna be able to use that next turn reactively and hope to find something else to fill out his curve and allow him to deal with Jasonzhou's onslaught until he gets to be able to play Arcane Giant, Moonglade Portal, and Ragnaros.
It has been a while since we've seen Dragon Warrior be a really popular deck. The execute change, had a big impact on a lot of the tempo warrior decks, including Dragon Warrior, the old school tempo warrior deck that Dragon Warrior sort of replaced. Jasonzhou still does run double copies of execute, so he's got 2 of those, so he will be able to handle some of the big threats. But the thing about this Druid deck from Hamster is that it's got a lot of them. It's got both of the Arcane Giants, it's got double Ancient of War, it's got Ragnaros, the Fire Lord. If we get to the late game, Hamster is going to have a lot of big bombs to slam on the board, and Jasonzhou, it doesn't have as many to combat that.
Even just in Jason's hand, though, if we get to the late game, he has Ragnaros of his own. He has the Deathwing as sort of the ultimate trump in the matchup. There's only 1 copy of Mulch in Hamster's deck, which can make it very difficult if you do get to that stage to deal with Deathwing, particularly in time. Because you have that Mulch, maybe you can find it, but Deathwing it gives you very, very little time when it's attacking for 12 every turn.
Yeah, usually a 2-turn clock, sometimes even a 1-turn clock when Deathwing slams on the board. You do give up your entire card advantage, but a lot of times at that point in the game, Dragon Warrior has expended their hand anyway.
Hamster deciding to use his Wild Growth here rather than swipe, recognizing, I think, correctly that Jason has very likely a turn 5 play that will die to swipe. The swipe plus hero power and the sapling will be able to remove the Kor'kron Elite and the Azure Drake this turn. So he's able to use swipe and get a full board clear thanks to that sapling remaining alive.
And now his Arcane Giant is also starting to get cheaper and cheaper as well, since he's cast a spell nearly every turn. And so that'll be a big deal. Jasonzhou has drawn into an Execute, and now an Activator for the Execute. So
he has the Fire Blast already, so he doesn't necessarily need the Activator for Execute, but mostly Jason here, he's just looking to put on as much pressure as he can. He wants to ensure that he gets to the point where he's playing Ragnaros and putting Hamster in an awkward spot. Hamster finds the Ancient of War, so this, unfortunately for Hamster though, really just plays into exactly what he's looking to do anyway, which is use this turn, removing a big minion, and then follow up with Ragnaros in the following turn.
His mana utilization is slightly awkward. He can't develop anything. If he wanted to play the Azure Drake, he'd have to attack in with the Fairy Dragon in order to activate the Execute. This is actually a big showcase of the Execute change.
Yeah, if Execute only cost 1 mana here, like it did for much of Hearthstone's life, the Blood to Ichor plus Execute plus Azure Drake would give Jason an enormous tempo swing. And we're kind of seeing, hey, that would have been really powerful.
It would have
Maybe it's Sprite that doesn't do that anymore. But yeah, we do see he's going to go ahead and use the Blood to Ichor just to clear the way and build a board presence. This is particularly powerful against the Ragnaros that Hamster has in his hand, developing a wider board and ensuring that Jason is able to continue putting pressure on. The second swipe, it's kind of interesting. If Hamster wanted to, he could actually fire off those swipes both at the face, do a lot of damage to Jason. That's not quite enough for Ragnaros to threaten lethal, though. If Jason were at 1 lower life, I actually might imagine Hamster would think, okay, just fire off those swipes, put you to 8, with a plan of next turn drop Ragnaros, either kills what you have or kills you. But it will be Ragnaros for Hamster. He's looking to get a hit on either Jason or one of these minions. It's going to go ahead and kill the Fairy Dragon. Now Jason, he has Ragnaros of his own, and this is a big moment here for Ragnaros. Does it kill his buddy Ragnaros? Oh, it goes face. Hamster down to just 3 life, but he has Ragnaros still in play.
He does have Ragnaros still in play, but as you mentioned earlier, the math just doesn't line up. He can't double swipe and set up for a chance at lethal, but what he can do is use double swipe to clear the board and then have Rag hit face to try and set up a 2-turn lethal. One thing, he's at 3 health.
He has seen already one of the Kor'kron Elites and one of the Fireworks in addition to one of the Alexstrasza's champions. So there's not that many things that Jasonzhou could have the following turn to actually guarantee that he has lethal damage. And Hamster sets up, because of the damage from the 2 swipes, he's putting Jasonzhou into range that he could potentially just kill him with Ragnaros the following turn.
Yeah, it's really risky. There is a couple, there's Blackwing Corruptor, Grom Hellscream. Those are a couple things that could deal 3 damage at least the next turn to kill Hamster. When you go for it, he gets a Karen Bloodhoof.
This is an interesting line from Hamster here because he is leaving Ragnaros up unless he hits it with his own Ragnaros. And he does! Ragnaros goes down. Hamster is the master of the Fire Lord here, and now Jasonzhou, he's not only behind Ragnaros, but there's a Cairn in play too.
Yeah, Cairn is so tough to remove. That's almost always going to deal 4 damage the next turn. Jason does have a Twilight Guardian to try and block some damage.
And here, here Hamster, he has the ability, if he wants, to fire off, that's actually just lethal damage, I think. He can fire off 2 swipes to the face, attack in with the Cairn, and yeah, Wrath will finish the deal. The Wrath kills off the Azure Drake, he just has lethal.
Well, we'll see if he spots it. The both swipes are going to the face. It looks like he has it. And that's going to be Hamster taking game number 1 of our first quarterfinal match.
And we saw, the Ragnarok showdown. We saw him in the Heroes of the Storm reveal earlier, and now making his debut in game 1 of the world's top 8 today.